with Coyote versus Acme coming out in uh, the end of this month, I wanted to review all the live action uh, Looney Tunes movies. So I am going to do these kind of out of order. What I mean by that is Space Jam is first, technically the live action hybrid Looney Tunes movie first in order, but I'm going to review Space Jam 2 after this, which technically is the sequel to this movie, but it isn't the second Looney Tunes live action movie that's back in action. But I'm going to do that one last because it doesn't make sense to review Space Jam 1 and then not immediately follow that review up with Space Jam 2. So that's just why I'm going to do it. I just want to explain that. So people are like, hey, you said you were going to review all of them, but then you didn't do back in action. Well, I did. I just did it in a different order because that's just the way it made sense to do it, if that makes sense. Anyways, let's talk about this movie. I really like Space Jam. Honestly, I'll be honest, this is one of my movies that I rewatch the most. Reason why is because when I think of hour and a half movies that are ridiculously entertaining from my childhood, that yes, aspects of it don't hold up, but I can still have a great time watching. This is my favorite one to do that with. Because, man, every time I watch this movie, I'm like, I get sucked in because it's so much fun. And despite this movie being a commercial, it's a pretty damn good movie. And I'm sick of people saying that it's not. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. This is actually a good movie. I mean that. Let me explain. Let me start with the stuff that doesn't work, and let me explain what it does. So, I guess I should explain the origins, because some people don't realize this anymore, but Space Jam was an NBA commercial for, like, Nike shoes and shit. And then it got turned into a movie where, like, Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan would play basketball. That's simple as that, and they would advertise shoes. And a lot of people have kind of lost the plot on that. Like, they forget that was a thing. And, yeah, it was totally a thing. People liked it. It was a big deal. And so, there's Looney Tunes. So they made this a movie. And when you watch this movie, there's a part of it that definitely is cynical. Right? There's blatant advertisement for, all kinds of stuff. Like McDonald's and things like that in the movie. And, Michael Jordan's acting's not the best and things like that. So I'm not going to say, like, it's high art cinema, but it is good, like, filmmaking, because you watch this movie and you watch Space Jam 2 and you're like, you didn't try to put a really awesome soundtrack to the movie that fits the movie and makes it more enjoyable. They didn't do that at all. This movie does. The animation is gorgeous. And, some of the CGI this is pretty bad. Most of, like, the actual 2D animation where characters move, they look for excuse me. They look fantastic in the 4K picture quality. Like, they just look great. The basketball sequences is incredibly fluid. The joke writing, I mean, this isn't like, to be honest, this isn't much like classic Looney Tunes shorts. In fact, there was people who worked on Looney Tunes shorts back in the day were not happy with how this movie depicted those characters and how they would do things. But it was the 90s, a different time. So, I kind of give them some leeway on that. Also, we didn't have Mel Blanc, who did a lot of those voices, around anymore. So some of the voices, there was one, I've watched this movie so many times. So I remember one distinct viewing that I watched a bunch of Looney Tunes shorts, and then I watched Space Jam right after, and I was like, why do their voices sound so bad? And then I was like, oh, it's because the voice actor died. So that's one thing. But yeah, there's just so much about it. And yeah, Michael Jordan's acting isn't the greatest, but I think Michael Jordan himself, while not being the greatest actor, he does try to give some charisma and, like, joy to the movie. Like, he does feel like he wants to be there, and his persona in this movie was special. It was kind of wrapped around the stage of his career, and so this movie, I think, has so much going for it, and it's the perfect length. Like, you watch Space Jam 2 and you're like, this movie's like 2.5 hours. This movie's an hour and a half, and really it's like an hour 20 with credits. It's like an hour and a half. So, but it's even less than that, and it just moves so quickly, does everything it needs to do, gets in, gets out, and it's just so well made and crafted and filled with love, even if it is a cynical commercial at its heart. And so, there's a lot of people who tell you this is a terrible movie. I understand if you don't personally like the movie. I'm not saying this is like one of the greatest movies ever made, but this is definitely a classic for a reason. Like, people like this movie. It plays in theaters all the time. I still see people with Space Jam shirts, young and old. Like, Space Jam is a classic movie. I mean, there's a reason nobody likes Space Jam 2 and Space Jam. What doesn't work about this movie is the obvious stuff that you think doesn't work, right? Some of the, like, weird stuff of, like, this goes everything I know in health class. I'm like, don't know if that works. You want to win, don't you? Okay. Morally, I'm like, I don't know about that. But then you got, like, Lola and shit in this movie that's not great and doesn't very sexist stuff. Like, a lot of that stuff's here. But honestly, that's part of the charm of this movie being like a time capsule of the 90s. And so, yeah, sometimes dated things about movies can kind of make it more enjoyable, where you're able to kind of laugh and be goofy at the thing of the time. Now, I understand that if you don't really want to watch stuff like that with that in it, I get it. But I don't know. It's a charming movie. It does everything it wanted to do. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It does what it needs to do. It has fun with it, and I feel like this is one of my favorite all-time favorite movies. Maybe at least top 20 favorite movies. Is it great? It's great for the kind of movie it's trying to be, and you cannot deny that. So everybody, it's time to slam now. We got the real jam going down. Welcome to the Space Jam. I think that's a good note to end this video on.